I want to talk about the recognition of Palestine by France, United Kingdom, Australia, Canada. I want to talk about that because it's given me lots of mixed opinions, okay? Mixed thoughts. So just recently, these countries went to the General Assembly and announced their recognition of a Palestinian state. They are far from the first ones to do it. I think right now there are about 157 countries that recognize Palestine. There are significantly more countries that recognize Palestine than recognize Kosovo. There are only about 160 something countries that recognize Israel. I'm pretty sure there are maybe like there are a dozen states between the two of them now when it comes to recognition. It's drawn all kinds of responses from all of the best and worst people in the conflict. And are there more countries recognizing Palestine? No. It's about 157 recognize Palestine and about 165, 67 recognize Israel. So they're not far off. They're close, but obviously in practice they are miles and miles apart in terms of statehood. Like I said, a lot more countries recognize Palestine than Kosovo, but Kosovo is easily more sovereign and more independent and whatever than Palestine is. So it does bring up a whole question mark around recognition. What does it mean? What does it do? Is it strategically placed? Because, people under international law and basic morality have a right to self-determination. But obviously, the way that self-determination is recognized and granted can vary, and there's been all kinds of different opinions around how that should be done. Resolution 242 back in the Six-Day War and Resolution 338 following, and the typical mantra of the two-state solution and the peace process has always been one where you should have two states based on mutual recognition, mutually agreed borders, safe and secure boundaries. This has always been the consensus of there being two states. So unilateral action has often been discouraged. The Israeli withdrawal from South Lebanon was discouraged by several countries because it was unilateral. It was done without a peace treaty, which meant that the expectation was that it wouldn't actually end the conflict. It would just move it elsewhere. And it did, because Hezbollah took over the south. And then they, like they always said they were going to do, used it as a launch pad against Israel. Same with the unilateral withdrawal of Gaza, even though at the time, it definitely, with the information people had at the time, it seemed very much the moral thing to do. And in some ways, I think it still was. Like, the settlements should never have been there. But because it was unilateral, again, there were warnings that it would lead to groups like Hamas taking credit for it and taking power, and that's exactly what they did. So and that's why this question of of recognition from all these countries comes in. But it's still, I don't think it's that simple. I don't think there's a really simple answer to it. So my position has remained for a good while now that there are two national groups living in this region. There is no moral or practical argument for removing either of them. Any attempt to do so will just be an obscene level of violence and murder, far beyond anything we've seen in the Israel-Palestine conflict so far, even compared to what's going on in Gaza. The idea of trying to remove millions of people from either side so that one other can have the entire land is just completely unfeasible and immoral and everything else. The idea of them sharing the land anytime soon in an equal state with democracy and equal rights, I would love that. But I would like the conflict to end this century. So that's off the table as well for the very foreseeable future. Yeah, two states is really the only answer to the conflict. If you want to do what the Israeli right are doing, which is just keep the status quo slowly chugging along, the Palestinian question is just always left on the permanent back burner as they creep into the West Bank, and they start to very strongly consider creeping back into Gaza through settlements, and where the concept of a Palestinian state just becomes physically impossible. That is also a very big issue. it's not only for Palestinians, it's also a big issue for Israelis, because Israelis don't realize that if you start extending sovereignty into the West Bank, well, there are people living in the West Bank who are going to be part of your political society. And logically, what happens is those people are eventually going to campaign for voting rights, and they will be right to campaign for voting rights. And if you are a Jew who believes that you have a quite valid belief that Jews as a minority in the Middle East are not safe, then you're fucking yourself. So yeah, two states it's the only, to me, every other answer other than two states is like a meme. It's not serious to me. The way you go about it, I think, matters. Like I said, with Resolution 242 and all the rest. The way they've done it with France, the UK, Canada, is they've given their recognition. They have, and those are the headlines, they recognize Palestine. But then you go further down their speeches and their interviews, and then they qualify it. They say things like, well, yeah, we want it to be a Palestinian state, but we would like it to be demilitarized. We would like it to have a safe and secure boundary with Israel. We should like it to involve recognition of Israel from the singular Palestinian state. Hamas give up the hostages, Hamas disarm and leave government. So they say all this, but it's all outside the headline. The headline is just they recognize a state. Italy, interestingly, gave an alternative approach, which was to say, we're ready to recognize Palestine, but after Hamas is gone. Return the hostages, Hamas are excluded from any future government, and then you get and then we recognize. And Meloni is currently paying for that right now with riots across in certain parts of the country. So I think it tells you why Britain, France, etc., why they're doing this. Because recognition inherently doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't have to do. You can just like theoretically, okay. But the UN, the General Assembly, could vote to recognize my bedroom as a sovereign state. But obviously, if no one does anything following that, then nothing's going to happen. Now, they are talking about embassies, and it does have diplomatic implications and everything else. Like the UK has raised a Palestinian flag at the embassy in London. But for the most part, it doesn't really have to have any positive or negative effect on Palestinians. Like, if there's nothing following it, there's no agreement between the two parties, if there's no brokered agreement, it's like a diplomatic pressure. But symbolism does matter. So I just wonder if it's going to go beyond symbolism. That's the thing. That's the thing I'm not sure about. And I do wonder if these politicians in the UK and France and Canada, I wonder if they're kind of just doing this to keep the protesters at bay, because especially Macron and Starmer have suffered massive blows from the far left in their own respective countries, right? Because of the and not even the far left anymore, even some center left people, because Israel's position has become so universally unpopular in the world, and the perceived complicity or the actual complicity of these governments has not gone unnoticed. And I feel like this is probably the quickest, easiest, and most like apparent way that they can do it, like recognizing a state, putting up the flag, the embassy. It's like it looks like a lot, but you also don't really have to do that much. And I wonder just how like much of it is even just cynical in that sense, because like if you're Keir Starmer and you want to throw a bone to the pro-Palestine people in your country, you want to keep as many of them going towards Corbyn, you want to keep them from doing that as much as possible, then this is what you do. And but then you're also almost like treating these protesters and activists as if that's all they want. They just want a symbolic win. Maybe a lot of them do. Maybe a lot of them will be satisfied with that. I don't know. The problem is that, especially when I was listening to Macron talking about this in his interview, he really made me wonder because obviously, and we'll get to it in a minute, people are challenging this, and Maloney hints to it as well, by saying that it does kind of sound like you're just offering a freebie to Hamas, because they stand to gain, out of any Palestinian organization, they stand to gain the most from this because it's easiest for them to claim responsibility. Like, if you're Mahmoud Abbas, and Mahmoud Abbas is obviously trying to claim responsibility because he's the recognized representative of the Palestinians internationally, he's trying to make this about him. But imagine if you're in Palestine and you're having this discussion and someone's saying, well, I think Abbas's speeches at the UN, or Abbas's diplomacy did this, or Abbas's good behavior did this. And then imagine trying to explain that argument to a Hamas supporter who is saying, excuse me, Abbas has been doing that for 25 years. What changed just recently to get all these countries flipping? The United Kingdom, the British mandate, they're flipping. Well, that's October 7th. That's Hamas is doing. And that's the brutality of Israel's response. Yeah, you would be laughed out of the room. You'd be fucked. The way Macron responded to some of these interview questions on recognition of Palestine, he really just sounded like he doesn't know that much or care that much about the intricacies of what he's been pushing. So I think in that interview, from my memory, he said something about how this isn't a reward to Hamas because Hamas doesn't want a Palestinian state. They want to destroy Israel. That's like almost his exact words. He also said something like about how we're doing our embassy and our negotiations and our diplomatic relations with the PA in the West Bank, and there's no Hamas in the West Bank. And I'm like, I mean, they don't have power in the West Bank, but they have a lot of influence. They're the most popular party in the West. Like, he just sounded very out of his depth. And for him to say that Hamas doesn't want a state, they want to destroy Israel, is just false. The second part is true, but them not wanting a two-state solution or a two-state agreement with Israel doesn't mean they don't want a state. He could have just listened to what they said. You can go through it because obviously Hamas are claiming victory for this. And it's not even difficult for them to do it. So they're saying, this is Mardawi, resistance will not disarm until Palestinian national goals are achieved. Stress that Gaza will not surrender and that the resistance remains steadfast in its positions. We will not retreat. We will not give up our weapons until national aspirations are fulfilled, even though it seems like Macron and Carney and Starmer are saying that our recognition is going to involve this not happening. But you can look at Osama Hamdan. He's one of the names that constantly comes up in the chants of anti-Hamas protesters in Gaza right now. He doesn't live there, but they really don't like him. Calls for concrete actions following recognition of statehood. Israel does not want the war to end, don't want negotiations, we don't trust it. Palestinian state will be established with Al-Quds as its capital. The future of the so-called Zionist entity remains bleak. It's, again, they do sound like they see it as just evidence that they can win. Maybe a bit more on the nose. Is this one where they spoke about sacrifices? Yeah. In a statement, Hamas described the recognitions as an important step in affirming the Palestinian people's right to their land and holy sites and in establishing an independent state with Jerusalem as its capital. The movement said that this acknowledgement is a long overdue recognition of the Palestinian people's struggle, resilience, and sacrifices in their pursuit of liberation and return. Hamas emphasized that such recognition must be accompanied by practical measures to immediately halt the genocide in Gaza and resist Israeli annexation and Judaization efforts in the West Bank and Al-Quds. Again, it's just the same reiteration of their standard line, which is that we would like a state, we don't want to recognize their one. Because we ultimately want to push for all of it. The state and the 67 borders is just a sort of first step. If you want to see a month and a half old statement now, because this has been pondered by France, Britain, and Canada for a while. This was Ghazi Hamad talking about it on Al Jazeera, and I've got the full interview for this if you want as well. are you going to play?
بدي أقول باختصار شديد وكلام واضح، السلاح يعني القضية الفلسطينية، السلاح مساوي للقضية. احنا تربينا منذ أن كنا صغارا، ما بتكلم عن حركة، كل أبناء الشعب الفلسطيني وكل أبناء الفصائل الفلسطينية الذين حملوا السلاح وحاربوا وقاتلوا وجاهدوا واستشهدوا ورووا الأرض بدمائهم، كان دائما هذه قوتنا الأساسية في مواجهة هذا الاحتلال. ولذلك كان هناك إجماع وطني فلسطيني على هذا الموضوع. لا أحد من أبناء الشعب الفلسطيني الآن يقول بأن المقاومة يجب أن تنتهي، لأنه تسليم السلاح يعني نهاية المقاومة، تسليم السلاح يعني نهاية القضية الفلسطينية. نحن كأبناء الشعب الفلسطيني لن نسلم سلاحنا، يفهم هذا الكلام، ولا حتى يعني بيقولوا طلقة فارغة، هذه تأتي في إطار الحل السياسي، لكن أن نسلم لإسرائيل ما تحلم في هذا الموضوع إطلاقا. الفلسطينيين لا يفعلوا شيء غير قانوني، إحنا نقاتل ونحارب من أجل أن نصل إلى حريتنا، لا لسنا إرهابيين ولا نستخدم أي أسلوب إرهابي، من حقنا أن نقاتل. حتى 7 أكتوبر اللي بيتحدثوا عنه، دعونا مثلا أقول، لأنه العالم يعتقد أنه إنه التاريخ وقف عند 7 أكتوبر، لا، التاريخ بدأ من عام 48. أنا أعتقد 7 أكتوبر كانت ردع كل الجرائم الإسرائيلية على مدى 77 عاما. 7 أكتوبر هذه الضربة القوية التي وجهت إلى إسرائيل أنا أعتقد أعطت 3 إنجازات تاريخية كبيرة جدا. أول شيء إن هي أعادت القضية الفلسطينية. اليوم ليش كل الدول، أعطيني بس أقول لك مثل، ليش كل الدول أصبحت تعترف بفلسطين الآن؟ قبل 7 أكتوبر هل في دولة تجرأت على أن تعترف بدولة فلسطين؟ أعطيني بس من ذلك. الآن حصاد 7 أكتوبر هو الذي خلى كل العالم يفتح عيونه على القضية الفلسطينية ويتحركوا باتجاهها بشكل قوي، إن الشعب الفلسطيني شعب يستحق الدولة، يستحق الحرية. الشيء الثاني، كل العالم كان يقتنع بأن دولة الاحتلال دولة ديمقراطية وجميلة ومظلومة ومضطهدة. اليوم أنا أعتقد العالم كله أصبح على قناعة إنه هذا القناع قد سقط عن وجه إسرائيل. كل العالم أصبح يتحرك ضد إسرائيل. اليوم المسيرات والمهرجانات اللي في أمريكا وبريطانيا وفرنسا وألمانيا كلها تتكلم عن الإبادة الجماعية. اليوم مين يتصور أن دولة الاحتلال أصبح رئيس وزرائها مطلوب للجنائية الدولية، وحتى رئيس أركانها مطلوب للجنائية الدولية، وأصبحت إسرائيل متهمة بالإبادة الجماعية، التطهير العرقي، كل هذه الأشياء كشفت عن إسرائيل. الشيء الثالث، أنا أعتقد بشكل واضح الذين كانوا يعتقدون بأنه هزيمة إسرائيل مسألة صعبة اليوم أصبحت أسهل ما تكون. إحنا اليوم أثبتنا من خلال 7 أكتوبر أنه إمكانية هزيمة إسرائيل مسألة ليست صعبة كما كان يتصورها البعض.
Like that, again, I know people like to soy out over memory clips because they think it's all fake, even though I've still never seen them do a bad translation that I've been made aware of. But like you can have the whole interview. It's on the Al Jazeera channel on YouTube. So there you go. If you want to challenge the, why is this not pasting? Thank you. But anyway, that last line in particular, him saying that through October 7th, we proved that we could defeat Israel, that it's possible, that it's not even that difficult. When Norway and Ireland recognized Palestine last year, the message was similar. They also said something about how it is like basically affirmed the steadfastness of the people in Palestine, specifically in Gaza, right? So the steadfastness is their way of talking about, like, we attack them, we absorb the retaliation, we absorb the civilian deaths, we make a good bit of use of them when it comes to condemning Israel and getting the rest of the world to condemn them as well. And then we use that to our political advantage rather than giving up. Because again, no one in Gaza or West Bank sincerely believes that Hamas rockets and Hamas guys creeping out of tunnels is defending anyone in Gaza, right? No one actually believes that. But what the understanding is that the longer they keep the hostages and the longer they keep putting up a fight without surrendering, then the more Israel continues to do this, to fuck themselves on the world stage, and especially doing it with the most psychotic, reckless right-wing Israeli government that we've had since like the 70s, probably. So it can't be particularly easy for a Palestinian who opposes Hamas to try and, so you're a Palestinian, so you're neutral. You've got one person in your ear saying, well, Abbas kind of just did business as usual, behaved himself, spoke at the UN, and that's why we got a state, versus look at what Hamas did on October 7th and how Palestine has been front and center of international news for 2 years because of their steadfastness, and now we've got a state from that, and everyone's accusing Israel of genocide. Like, who is going to be more convincing to you? It's a no-brainer. And if you're Israeli, that's the worst part. I feel like it's helping the worst people in Israel as well. If you're an Israeli left-winger who believes in a Palestinian statehood and pursuing a peace deal, well, you've got Macron and these other countries saying, yeah, we're doing this for that. We're doing this for a peaceful two-state solution with mutual recognition. We're doing this not for Hamas. Hamas doesn't want this. This is actually a blow to Hamas because we're affirming a Palestinian state alongside Israel. And then you've got Hamas in your other ear saying, yeah, thanks for that huge W, France, Canada. That recognition has actually just proven to us that our fighting works and that it was worth it to keep fighting and that we can actually defeat you. We can destroy you. Like, you're going to listen to Hamas. They speak louder. Like, you're going to listen to them. And this is, I guess, the thing that just always gets missed. The people who are on your border who are saying that we're going to take this as an affirmation of our tactics and our war strategy, yeah, of course you're going to listen to them. So it's a very odd thing for these countries to do, because I don't think it would have even been that hard for them to say, we have plans in place to recognize a Palestinian state as soon as Hamas gives up the hostages and fucks off. I feel like that would have been much easier, but I don't know. The headlines now are that they've got their recognition, and a few people will read the rest of the article that shows the desire for disarmament and no Hamas and everything else, but most people won't. Most people won't. So it's not just about, like you're saying Hamas would obviously try to spin it in their favor. Yeah, they will, but they're spinning it in a very convincing way. Like, it is in their favor. Everyone in Palestine knows, whether they're pro or anti-Hamas, knows that Abbas's approach wouldn't have got them this, because Abbas's approach towards Israel is the same as it's been since 2005. He hasn't done all that much different. The big change that's gone on the last 2 years that has resulted in all of this rapid decline in Israel's public standing or international standing has been after October 7th. Everyone knows that. You cannot argue away from that. And as far as what it does for the Israeli right-wingers, I mean, let's say you're an Israeli right-winger who doesn't want to care about international opinion, who thinks the country would be better off if they ignored it and just pursued their policies as if the rest of the world hates you anyway. Well, look at them now. Look at them. You've almost got them in a position where they're just like, well, okay, what are you going to do? France, Canada, Australia, United Kingdom, what are you going to do? If we start annexing parts of the West Bank, what are you going to do? You're going to recognize Palestine? You already have. You're not going to deploy military to stop us, right? You're probably not yet in a position where you're going to get like sweeping sanctions against us. So unless I'm missing something, to me, it really just feels like they've rewarded like all the worst people in the region. Not least of all because this happened not long ago, that the Israeli Knesset voted 71-13 in favor of West Bank annexation. Now, they say it's a non-binding vote. It's not actually legal. The exact language they use is to apply Israeli sovereignty to, like they say, Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley. The problem is that applying sovereignty, that's what they did in the Golan. That's what they did in Golan. But everyone recognizes Golan as a de facto annexation. So it's a distinction without a difference. It's just them using legal language. And if you want to know why that is horrible for Palestinians, it's quite obvious. But if you want to know why it's even not great for Israelis, like, you can hear that from Israelis themselves, like from Israeli organizations. This is from the Israeli Policy Forum talking about annexation, and like it's all the obvious things about like how much it would cost even if they just went for Area C, how many IDF reservists would need to be deployed. And again, it's just like you're just adding this permanent like quagmire to Israeli society, and this is American. Okay, well, I imagine that they care about Israel if they're called the Israeli Policy Forum. Annexation closes the door to a future two-state agreement. In a one-state outcome, millions of Palestinian non-citizens will live under Israeli sovereignty, undermining its Jewish and democratic credentials. If the authority, the PA, ceases functioning after annexation, Israel will also have to assume significant security and budgetary strains. I don't know what they're doing with regards to annexation right now, although I know Smotrich's plan is probably the closest that we're coming to just like an annexation with the very, very unambiguous intention of solidifying the death of the two-state solutions and make it completely impossible because of how it disrupts contiguity and everything else in a way that is like irreversible. But when I think about when a handful of countries recognized Palestine last year, Smotrich's response was to legalize 5 outposts and make them into regular settlements. 1 for each country. He did that. This time, what they're doing is, they say this isn't related, but I find that very hard to believe. So a little while ago, 2 IDF soldiers were killed by a Jordanian man who was crossing under the pretense of distributing aid, of taking aid to Gaza. He came in an aid truck and then shot 2 soldiers and killed them. The border crossing between West Bank and Jordan was closed immediately after that, but then it was reopened. Although after this recognition from France, UK, etc., they've closed it again, which I find very hard to believe has nothing to do with these recent developments. And obviously the big question to countries like France or to Mark Carney in Canada is, yeah, okay, you've recognized a state and you want it without Hamas, but okay, go disarm Hamas then. Where's the plan? Where's the plan to do that? Because right now it seems like the only way you're going to do that is to just keep bombing the shit out of them with Israel. And then the problem with that is that even guaranteed to do it? Like, not really. Is that you could just, because I think the way things are going now is you're just going to end up seeing Israel so like laser focused on just trying to destroy the military of Hamas without any concept of a future for Gaza or a sustainable future for Gaza, without any concept of trying to show people in Gaza that there can be an alternative to Hamas rule. No constructive element, just destructive. Well, if you do that, you could theoretically be fighting an insurgency in Gaza forever. And if you're an Israeli right-winger, if you're like Netanyahu or you're definitely Ben-Gvir or Smotrich, that might not even be a bad thing for them. They might like that. They might like the idea that they can stay in a quagmire because because if things get too peaceful or if things get too if you get into a position where Gaza can actually be rebuilt and it can pose itself as a sustainable society and they can start to reconcile with the PA again and they can get involved, then you're creeping towards statehood. And then people like Netanyahu and those guys, they really don't want that. So a quagmire or like a permanent insurgency situation in Gaza might even be preferable for the right wingers. It gives them an excuse to settle. It gives them in the Strip. It gives them an excuse to keep the military presence. It gives them an excuse to stop Palestinians from developing into a self-sustaining political body. So I don't know. It's like a really rough position to be in. Again, a Palestinian state alongside Israel is the only way that this conflict can ever end this century, okay? If you want it to keep going for another 100 years, then fight for whatever other dumb shit you think is a good idea. And I think it should be something along the lines of what was offered either between Taba or the Olmert Plan or the Geneva Initiative, but God, I feel like decisions like this, like the naivety of it, like look, you've got the Palestine and the Dove and Israel. Meanwhile, over there, you've got Israeli right wingers being like, okay, we're about to go complete fucking retribution. The rest of the world hates us. Let's just act like they're going to keep hating us and just do our thing, but quicker. Collective punishment as well. They love doing that. And then Hamas over there being like, yeah, well, I guess we should keep fighting. Because if we surrendered 6 months ago, we wouldn't have got this. That's what they think. That's what they're telling people. It's very convincing. It's very hard to get. It's very hard to argue against. The recognition is conditional on Hamas not being in power, right? Well, not really, because they have already recognized the state. Obviously, the development of relations, all that would be conditional on Hamas being gone. So they're kind of doing both. They're saying, yeah, we recognize and we're raising the flags and we're going to open embassies and all that, but they're still, they've got it's like fine print. That's how it appears in the press. So even if they're saying that they still have extra conditions for Hamas to be out of power, Hamas doesn't see that. They don't need to see that. They don't need to show people that. The headlines don't make it seem like that. So again, just look at the, you're going to find out, look at how Abbas talks about what just happened and how Hamas talks about it, and ask yourself who you think is going to be more convincing. Like it's to me, it's a no-brainer. Oh yeah, I can't even show this on stream, but I think on the day that these recognitions took place, Hamas gathered a crowd and executed a handful of people who they said were either opponents or collaborators, or if they're called collaborators, they could have been doing anything. So who knows? I don't know if that was done as a celebration or just a way of being like, listen, we told you so, dicks. That's what you got. You opposed us. You opposed us achieving this. Fuck you. I think this was maybe one of them. All the Hamas posts go on social media. That's what they do. The Abu Muksib family in Gaza holds Hamas responsible for the killing of their son, Mahmoud Abdullah Abu Muksib, who was the head of security teams securing the entry of aid and goods trucks into Gaza. Yeah. It's just theater, essentially. I mean, maybe, yeah. I think from the perspective of, when it comes to Macron, especially when I was watching him in that interview, it does seem like it was very theatrical. Yeah. He does not seem to have a very deep understanding of the, like when I hear other politicians talk about the conflict, even if I don't like them, even if it's someone like Hillary or like Bill Clinton, when you hear them talk about the conflict, like it's very clear that they've thought about it and they kind of understand the dynamics, even if their positions are not necessarily the correct ones. Or even if I hear even like Finkelstein, like it's clear there's an understanding there. But when I heard Macron talking about it, it just sounded very naive. But it's not theater for the fucking psychos in the Israeli government. It's not theater for people like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich who feel emboldened by it. And because again, their big message of the Israeli right wingers, the farther right they go, their message is always, you cucked Ashkenazi liberal like losers, stop trying to make the rest of the world like you. Stop with this stupid like liberalism and human rights pretenses. The rest of the world hates you. The Palestinians hate you. We need to be strong. We need to not give a fuck about the rules because they don't give a like. That's the right wing message. That's the right wing message to anyone to the left of them. And obviously, when stuff like this happens, when more of the world turns their back on Israel, the right wingers get to be like, yeah, we told you, fuck you, yeah, like. You're stuck here with us. How can they be emboldened when the rest of the world holds them responsible for this? It's kind of a good question. That's a good question. Because people in Israel, even if they're to the left, even if they are calling it genocide, actually, because I saw this when I was in Tel Aviv as well, even the farthest left Israelis, unless they're like fucking Hadash or whatever, they understand that Hamas's presence and Hamas's role in everything that's happened for the last 2 years is massively understated by the West. They all understand that. They understand that there's an enemy there. They understand that there's like people there who, with the size of their army and their tunnel networks and their control over civilian infrastructure and everything else, that they basically want to survive for as long as possible until they eventually can get a ceasefire so that they can rebuild and try again later. Like they understand how that dynamic works. So, but for them, like for the left-leaning Israelis, like they believe that there still needs to be an upholding of humanitarian standards, and there still needs to be Israel still needs to have a positive relation with the rest of the world, and they need to explain themselves to the rest of the world and all that. But then when they see the rest of the world behaving in a way that seems really fucking tone deaf, like Macron saying, yeah, we're going to recognize a Palestinian state, but you know, Hamas doesn't want us doing that. Hamas doesn't want a state. They don't want a state. Well, you got Macron saying that to you. Hey, you're Israeli. I'm not recognizing, I'm not doing this for Hamas. They don't like this. And then Hamas says to you, yeah, we fucking love this, dude. Yeah, this affirms October 7th. This affirms our fighting strategy in Gaza. This affirms our willingness to keep holding on to the hostages. This affirms our willingness to allow Gaza to get reduced to rubble. Yeah, like who are you going to listen to? You've got a fucking retard in one ear, Macron, who doesn't seem to know some of the basics, and then you've got Hamas in the other ear telling you the complete opposite. And if you're Israeli, you're going to listen to Hamas. You're going to listen to the people who are your neighbors, right? The ones who, you know, have had a very intimate relationship with you through the medium of rockets for the last 17 years. So yeah, I don't know. I just think it's very goofy, and that's why right wingers they gain a lot from that, because right wingers in Israel, like their whole belief system is their whole like ethos is them saying the rest of the world is going to hate us anyway, regardless of what we do. So we're better off ignoring them. Like that's like the right wing message, and I think shit like this from Macron just validates it. I don't know. Gives them an excuse. Even though I will say, the proposal that Macron gave and the things that Carney said, they're not inherently wrong. It's not inherently wrong to say, yeah, there should be a Palestinian state without Hamas and demilitarization and safe and secure borders and mutual recognition. Like that's all correct, right? These are all correct concepts. But again, the way the move is read is it's just read like, yeah, they've just recognized the Palestinian state. And then in the fine print, it's all these extra little things that we would like to see, but we're not really going to devote any political, military, any power, anything to actually achieving it. So, yeah. Who knows? If we get to like a month or 2 months down the line, the one thing that would make me feel like I've been pleasantly disproven on, because I'd be happy to get disproven on this, is maybe like the next PSR poll comes out and they ask questions about this, and it turns out that most people in Palestine don't actually hold Hamas responsible for recognition. Maybe Abbas is going to win the argument there. I think it's very unlikely, but we'll see. What I've seen, generally speaking, has been a fuck ton of celebration from Hamas accounts, interviews, everything else. Yeah. Because last I checked, everyone in Palestine hates Hamas. That's the last I heard, but Carney explained his position when he was speaking at the Council on Foreign Relations, if you want to research later. No, I know what he said. I know because what he said was quite similar to what was said by... It was quite similar to what was said by the Arab states, wasn't it? Because Qatar and I think like Bahrain and Saudi and a bunch of other Arab states, they came together and denounced Hamas and said that Hamas should give up power and disarm. They went against the Israeli government by saying that it should be the PA in charge of a future state. Obviously, Netanyahu doesn't want that. But that was to me the right message. It came very late, but that was the right message. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the message. It's just the way that they have delivered those terms just seems very. It just seems like very sloppy to me. I would really like to hear the argument for why they didn't say, we have recognition plans ready to go. We will raise the flag. We'll open the embassy. We'll open diplomatic. We will do all of this within 24 hours of Hamas surrendering. If they had done that, I feel like that would be... I have no idea why they didn't do it in that way. Because if they say it's about isolating Hamas, like that's how you would do it, right? Whereas giving them the state and then saying afterwards, we would like this other thing to happen, and it's below the headline, buried in the article. In 2025, that's not working. That's not a reasonable strategy. But I don't think they're doing it to isolate Hamas. Maybe they think that's a byproduct of it. I think they're doing it to keep their voters quiet. I think they're doing it to stop the fucking left-wing protests. I think that's why they're doing it. Am I wrong? Is that not the most logical reason for why they're doing it? They're doing it to keep fucking activists off their ass. That's why they're doing it. They're politicians. Did I miss anything there? Oh yeah, I was going to do a historical comparison. Might as well. Because I'm just thinking, imagine if this had happened in the Lebanon War in 82. So, for context, 1982, Israel invades Lebanon. It's the most right-wing government that they've had up to that point. It's kind of started on insanely dubious pretenses. The PLO were living as a state within a state in Lebanon for quite a while. They had they were collecting taxes. They were, in some cases, kind of like harassing and trampling on the rights of locals. They had a lot of control over Beirut. They were in bunkers and everything like that. They were launching attacks into Israel, and people in Lebanon obviously got very frustrated by that, because when Israel would attack them back, people would get caught in the crossfire, or property would get damaged and everything else. So in 1982, that's when this whole relation comes to a sort of like breaking point. And interestingly, that war wasn't even started on a PLO attack. There was no October 7th that did that. It was a group called Abu Nidal, which was a spin-off of the PLO, like a splinter group that opposed Arafat. They attempted to kill an ambassador or a diplomat, someone in Europe. They failed, but Israel used that as their pretense to go into Lebanon to defeat the PLO. When they went in, there's this interesting story about Lebanese people, mostly Shia, throwing flowers at IDF soldiers because the PLO presence was very frustrating to them. It was like they were harassed. They were some people like even had issues with employment and things like that. They obviously felt that they faced the repercussions whenever the PLO attacked Israel. They felt like their country was being used as a military launch pad that they didn't really have an interest in. The IDF initially were very focused on the PLO specifically when they invaded Lebanon. So there was even stories about Lebanese families gathering up on their rooftops to watch the IDF fighting with PLO soldiers just like down the street. So it was very, That's how it started. But then it became fucking brutal. When they reached Beirut, you had this defense minister called Ariel Sharon, who is the biggest cunt in Middle East history. He extended his mandate every time he was given permission to advance. He would advance twice as hard. If he was given permission to go into one neighborhood on the outskirts of Beirut, he would end up halfway through the city the next day. He would often launch strikes without any approval from the cabinet. He was a total criminal, like psycho, Ariel Sharon. And the siege on Beirut was hideous. It was like tens of thousands were killed. The PLO were mostly contained in bunkers or in civilian areas. Very familiar story, but a lot more primitive. There was a shitload of destruction. A lot of civilians died. And the PLO were kind of like, they were, again, similarly, they were steadfast. They kind of, it didn't go past them that Israel was suffering on the world stage because of the destruction. But what was different back then was that very early on in that siege on Beirut, I think only a few months in, the Arab League got together to condemn to advise the PLO to tell them that they should take a deal to evacuate from Lebanon, that they should leave and accept exile, like basically surrender. One of the lines that I think one of the Arab leaders used, I think it was a Saudi, who said something about how they didn't want to turn Beirut into Stalingrad. They thought if the PLO didn't give up, Beirut was going to become the modern Stalingrad. And after quite a lot of shelling and a lot of fighting and a lot of occasionally like shelling that even the rest of the entire cabinet, even Menachem Begin, like quite harshly opposed, the rest of the world came in, Britain, America, France, Italy, and they arranged a deal that allowed the PLO to evacuate Lebanon with peacekeepers and intermediaries in the country. And it went through. So the siege, it didn't last 2 years or anything like that in Beirut. It was much quicker. And the last one to agree was Arafat. So the final agreement there was for the PLO, about 4,000 fighters and Arafat and PLO leaders to evacuate the country so that Beirut doesn't turn into Stalingrad. That was the whole gist. But I'm just thinking, imagine if that hadn't happened. So imagine if the Arab League demands of the PLO came 2 years late, not a few months. And what would have happened, do you think? What do you think Arafat would have done if throughout that siege, European countries, like imperial European countries like France and the United Kingdom, start recognizing a state of Palestine as a way to, in the context of Israel's actions? And there's this like whole barrage of UN and human rights reports accusing Israel of genocide and being like a criminal state or an illegitimate state even. Imagine if all that was happening. You think Arafat would have given up so easily? And the PLO would have? Like, maybe not. I think that would have given him quite a strong excuse to keep going. But obviously, Arafat was different in the sense that he was very much on his own when it came to the siege of Beirut. The Arab League was quite quick to go against him and to call for the evacuation. Same with the Western countries, even when they were attacking Israel, even when Reagan was comparing Israel's actions to the Holocaust and shit, even when he was doing that, he was still, the United States were still pushing for the PLO to leave as well. So I think that's maybe I don't know how close the comparison is in detail, but generally speaking. How long did it take for the Arab League to condemn October 7th? Didn't they do it? It's not about condemnation. It's about them laying out terms. So Arab countries call Hamas to the call from the Arab countries to call Hamas to disarm. This actually no, I think it was. I think the Arab League condemnation of October 7th was July, wasn't it? Maybe individual members or maybe the league condemned the attack to begin with, but the broader demand, that 7-page letter that they wrote, that was July. Yeah. So we're what, a year and a half into the conflict, over a year and a half into it. Yeah. Along with the EU as well. Does the Arab League have any leverage over Hamas? I mean, Qatar kind of does. Other countries, maybe not that much. Not sure. Yeah, the 7-page text, 17 countries. We read this before. We read the text, the whole thing. It was similar to Israel's demands in a couple of ways. It was similar in the sense that it wanted Hamas to disarm. It wanted their leaders to go into exile. It differed in the sense that they wanted the PA to take over afterwards. Israel doesn't want that. The government doesn't want that. But honestly, I mean, they're in a better position. Like this demand, like the Arab League position is more correct here. But who knows? It's really upsetting. I honestly, I don't actually know. I don't think Hamas are going to surrender. I don't think they are. I think they will just devolve into a fragmented insurgency before they surrender. I would love to be wrong on that. And I don't even know if I see the Israeli government going any more left anytime soon. Don't know. I think the one thing that might, honestly, like IDF exhaustion, maybe just like unwillingness for soldiers to carry on, especially if annexation becomes a thing. I do think annexation might cause a problem in the sense that soldiers, I don't know what this, I need to speak to soldiers. I wonder how it would feel for a soldier who had to fight in Gaza. If you're a soldier who's had to fight in Gaza, then being told later on, oh yeah, you need to come back because we need to deploy you in some shithole fucking outpost because these hick inbred fucks settlers are throwing rocks at Palestinians, and we're afraid that the Palestinians might throw rocks back. I feel like after a soldier's fought in Gaza, surely you're gonna hear shit like that and just be like, nah, fuck that. Like the West Bank, like what, to protect newly annexed territory? Like fuck off. Hopefully, I don't know. I feel called out, Loner. What, as the soldier or as the inbred? What? Anyway, that's my opinion. That's my opinion on the statehood. I think, again, I think it's a good message, just delivered in the worst possible way. And is probably going to reward all the worst wankers in the region. Rip. Sorry. Ew, thanks for the $4.99. L Macron. Black pilled Kiwi, thanks for the 5 New Zealand. You really think there are Israelis who support a two-state solution that will change their minds based on the blunt international recognition? I mean, that's been the history of Israel for the last 25 years, is Israeli left-wingers getting fucking dragged to the right, either by suicide bombings or by feelings of isolation in the international community. So yes, actually, yes, I do, yeah. I mean, I think it's quite telling that I explained the right-wing sentiment in Israel, and about fucking 5 Israelis in chat were like, "Oh yeah, fuck, that's exactly what they're like." So yeah, I think I have my finger on the pulse pretty well there. Scuttle, thanks for the £5. You need a new goal. Do I? I'm a very left-wing Israeli borderlining with Hadash, and that's exactly how I feel. Yeah. Well, I will say, even though I understand it, I understand why people join Hamas as well. It's don't fucking turn right. Listen, if you're Israeli, okay, and you're a lefty Israeli, and you believe in two states and human rights and all that shit, bro, don't fucking turn right wing just because like Macron's a retard. Don't do that. Don't allow people's actions and people's stupidity to sway your political and moral worldview. Don't do that. I will have no sympathy for you, even though I can explain why it's happened and be understanding all that. Like, fuck you. Don't do it. Don't turn into, yeah. Don't turn into Brianna Wu, even though Israel's entire national story for the last 25 years is being Brianna Wu. Although at least it's more with like suicide bombings and international isolation than than tweets, than people being mean to you on Twitter. Come on, left-leaning people are usually not that regarded. Dude, how much does Israeli... Shut up. The Israeli left is fucking nuked, okay? They are shagged compared to what they were 25 years ago, okay? They are so shagged. You haven't even come close to winning an election in the last 25 years. The fuck are you talking about? What about Ulmer? Ulmer is not left. Well, I mean, like Ulmer wasn't voted in to discuss two states with Palestinians, right? He wasn't voted in to do that. As far as I... Was he? No, he wasn't, was he? He was Kadima. He was a centrist. He wasn't voted in with the same kind of mandate that Barak was. Barak's entire thing was like, I'm going to hinge my entire reputation and my career and my legacy on statehood for Palestinians. That was his... I don't think Ulmer did that, unless I missed something. Obama. True. Is Harvey Marvey soying out about MLK talking about putting a timetable on another man's freedom? Why is my fucking search bar not working on Chrome? What's Lego Fortnite saying on Discord? What's their opinion? Did you see the Destiny IP debate with Myron? Yeah, I saw I saw one bit of it and I was like, I know exactly what Myron's going to say. And then he said it and I got bored. I should actually get the clip because if Stardust's going to edit that into a segment, I should have the clip. Why the fuck won't YouTube? Hey. Is my keyboard just is it just dead? Oh. It's misbehaving, I see. What the fuck? Do I need to... Is there a USB thing going on there? No, it's not on battery. Wait. It's not typing. The fuck? What? I got no keyboard. I got no keyboard. What are you doing? All right, let's try USB. Okay. Boot it out. Wow, it just caused more problems. USB device not recognized. It malfunctioned. Fuck you. Why? Why would you do that? What? Why would it? What a dick. No, it wasn't even the wrong USB. I think the problem is that some of these USBs just get nudged and then they fail. They get a nudge and then they cry and shit themselves. What? God. Do I need to use this one instead? This is going to be annoying. Hang on. I have another lead. I'm not sure why. Sounds like user error, to be honest. You don't deserve to live in a video game. It's the rapture coming to you. Yeah? Yeah. Ooh. Okay. Come on. Come on. Make me happy. Make me rich. Make me rich. Fuck. Why? Why is it such a dick? Am I going to need to restart my computer to get my keyboard to work? Why would it do this to me? How do I... What? That's fucked, man. That's not cool. Did I nudge a button there? No, it's on Windows. Why would it do that? It's not on battery. That's in the appropriate thing. What? Is this my paracetamol that did this? I've just become so giga autistic that I can't get my keyboard to work. It did say something about the USB device not being cool. That's a problem. Restart USB via device manager. I can't get device manager because I have a fucking keyboard. What am I supposed to do? You want to help me? Yeah.
Hey. Hey, hey. Okay. Right-click on your start menu with your mouse.
Okay.
And then go to device manager. It's on the long list there.
I don't see it on any long list here.
If you right click on the start menu on your computer.
Oh, right click. Device manager. Okay, I got it. Yeah, okay. Got
it. And then once you're in there, what kind of keyboard do you have? Who's the manufacturer?
Keychron.
Oh, it's a mechanical keyboard. Okay. And it's wireless USB, yes? Or is it wired?
It's wireless and USB, but it's plugged in now.
Okay, yeah. You need to find the device under the list of things in Device Manager. Like it should be. Hold on, let me just check mine.
Well, let me take it out and then put it back in and see what shows up.
Well, if it sounds like it's crashing. Do you have any devices in there that have a yellow exclamation mark next to them?
I have one with the yellow exclamation mark called unknown USB device. So there's two of them really.
Yeah, but... I bet that's it. Unless, do you have any other USB devices plugged in besides like your mouse and keyboard?
My camera.
Oh, okay. Well, that's obviously working, so that's not it. Right click on the unknown USB device and go to uninstall.
Oh.
Hopefully it won't ask you to restart your computer.
Sure. Okay.
Usually
there's actually two here, so maybe I could do both.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Okay, it's uninstalled.
Okay. When you uninstalled it, was there a checkbox that said attempt to remove drivers?
Nope.
Okay. Unplug it and plug it in again.
Ooh.
And you should see Device Manager refresh.
Yeah, it does.
And does it come back with the yellow exclamation mark?
Don't think so. Not sure I see anything.
Is your keyboard working?
Yeah, wait, it is. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, based. You're
Boss.
welcome for this tech support. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Have a good stream.
Bye-bye. Out of curiosity, how long is your hair? Are you fucking kidding me? What? What a question. Where was the interview? It was here.
So Secretary of State
So this is what I mean by Macron just sounding kind of like he has no idea what he's talking about.
is a reckless decision. That's the word he used.
Let's go back.
Series of conditions and requirements we will put in the peace process, but we will announce the 22nd this recognition of Palestinian state.
So Secretary of State Marco Rubio said this is a reckless decision. That's the word he used. He said it gives Hamas little incentive to actually start diplomacy to release the hostages. Why do you disagree with that sequencing?
I think probably this is an excessive word, and I disagree with this approach. Why? Because the objective of Hamas is absolutely not to create a Palestinian state. The objective of Hamas is to destroy Israel, to convince the maximum number of people that they have no chance to have peace and stability and precisely a Palestinian state. And
see, this is the problem, because even when I look at their updated charter, like, to say that, it just seems like he has no idea what he's talking about. Like, you couldn't say a sentence like that if you knew anything about Hamas. He's saying they don't want a state, they want to destroy Israel. Well, actually, they've said many, many times that they would be fine with a state. The issue that they have is they don't want a state that's any less than all of the land forever. So when they say two states, they're happy with two states. They just don't want it to be permanent. They'll take a state as long as they don't recognize Israel. That's why they say here, this is in their updated charter, 2017. Hamas believes that no part of the land of Palestine shall be compromised or conceded, irrespective of the causes, the circumstances, and the pressures, and no matter how long the occupation lasts. Hamas rejects any alternative to the full and complete liberation of Palestine from the river to the sea. However, without compromising its rejection of the Zionist entity and without relinquishing any Palestinian rights, Hamas considers the establishment of a fully sovereign and independent Palestinian state, with Jerusalem as its capital along the lines of the 4th of June, 1967, with the return of refugees and the displaced to their homes from which they were expelled, to be a formula of national consensus. But it's fairly black and white, isn't it? And especially when you look at Hamas now, if they don't want a state, why are they welcoming the decision? Why are they so happy about it? Why are they saying it's an affirmation of all of their strategies and their steadfastness? I don't know. This is in the context of discussing a two-state solution. No, it's not. People are saying that this is a reckless decision. He's responding to Rubio saying it's a reckless decision. And Rubio, I don't know why, he might have his own reasons for saying that. But he's responding to someone telling him it's a reckless decision. And then he's saying, no, it's not reckless because Hamas doesn't want a state. Well, yeah, they do. And they'll take credit for it. And it's like, yes, they did. And yes, they did. Like, what the fuck? If it's about a two-state solution, i.e. solved forever, well, this doesn't do that. Recognizing a Palestinian state from France doesn't do that. The only way you do a two-state solution that solves it forever is if the Palestinians and the Israelis agree on that. They're the only two groups on earth that can agree to that. Whereas if it's just this recognition coming from France, UK, Canada, Australia, like, if that's what's happening, then Hamas can take that and just say, yeah, we're not going to go to stage 2, though. Why not? Why would we do that? We've got the popularity. We have the best argument for taking responsibility for it and taking credit for it. So, yeah, it kind of... No, it's not in the context of two-state solution. He's just being a goofball. He just sounds like he's out of his depth. I don't know. Is that even that surprising? Like, it's not that uncommon. It's not that unusual for Western politicians to just have like not that much interest in these issues. Like, even to find this clip from Ghazi Hamad, to find this clip, which is on fucking Memory TV, again, where he's saying, countries now recognize a Palestinian state, had dared not to do so before October 7th, taking credit for it and everything. Even this, like, to find the original interview for this, if you don't trust Memory, it took ages. You have to dig through quite hard through Al Jazeera's content because they upload so much, but like it's here and you've got the transcript and everything. Like it adds up. Hamas leader, we will stick to our weapons and not surrender even a single bullet. Yeah. Like it's all there. Al Jazeera. So I think it's quite silly, but maybe, again, I could be proven wrong if Hamas becomes significantly unpopular in the next few months because this recognition has harmed them. Maybe. If they're still around. They might not be, but I think they will be.